Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. This brings us to today. We are currently living through one of the most intense periods of moralism in the history of American education. But this time, it is coming from two different directions, and they are colliding in the classroom. We have what I call the moralism of the right and the moralism of the left. The moralism of the right, patriotism and grit. On the conservative side, there is a push for a specific kind of moral education that emphasizes tradition, patriotism, and grit. This movement views the purpose of school as preserving the heritage of the nation. The moral virtues championed here are loyalty, resilience, and personal responsibility. There is a strong reaction against anything that criticizes the country. You see this in the legislation banning certain books or concepts, often labeled as CRT. The argument is a moral one. It is wrong to teach children that their country is inherently flawed. It is wrong to make students feel guilt or shame about the past. There is also a huge focus on grit, popularized by Angela Duckworth. The idea is that the key to success is perseverance and passion. This sounds great. We all want kids to work hard, but it can easily turn into a harsh moralism that says, if you fail, it's not because the school is underfunded or you are hungry. It's because you didn't have enough grit. It moralizes failure. The moralism of the left, social justice and empathy. On the progressive side, there is an equally strong, though very different, form of moralism. This is the moralism of social justice, equity, and inclusivity. In these classrooms, the highest virtues are empathy, tolerance, and anti-racism. The sinner in this framework is the person who is prejudiced, exclusive, or ignorant of their privilege. This approach argues that neutrality is impossible in an unjust world. If a school isn't actively working against racism, it is complicit in it. Therefore, the curriculum must be moral. We must teach students to be allies. We must teach them to affirm diverse identities. Just like the old Puritan moralism, this new progressive moralism has its own language, its own saints, and its own taboos. You can get in just as much trouble today for saying the wrong thing about gender or race in a progressive school as you could for swearing in a 1950s Catholic school. The rise of therapeutic moralism, SEL. Caught in the middle is social emotional learning, SEL. This is the massive trend in schools right now. It focuses on teaching kids to manage their emotions, show empathy, and make responsible decisions. On paper, SEL is great. Who doesn't want kids to have better emotional regulation? But critics argue that SEL is often just therapeutic moralism. It turns the teacher into an amateur therapist. It defines goodness as emotional wellness. It implies that if a student is angry or disruptive, they are mentally unhealthy or unregulated, rather than perhaps having a legitimate reason to be angry. It risks pathologizing normal human reactions. It teaches kids to manage their feelings, rather than to question the conditions that are causing those feelings. It's the corporate mindfulness approach. Don't change the stressful workplace, just breathe through it. So where does this leave the teacher? The danger of all this moralism, whether it's the old school obedience, the character pillars, the patriotic grit, or the social justice warrior, is that it can easily turn into indoctrination. When a teacher slips into preacher mode, several bad things happen. 1. Performative morality. Students are smart. They learn to play the game. If they know the teacher wants them to say, "I should always share because sharing is caring," they will say it. But they might not mean it. They learn that school is about parroting the right answers to get the adults off their backs. This creates cynics, not moral citizens. 2. The us versus them mentality. Moralism almost always creates an other. In the religious model, the other was the non-believer. In the patriotic model, the other is the critic or the protester. In the social justice model, the other is the person with the backward views. Instead of teaching students how to engage with people they disagree with, moralism teaches them to judge and dismiss them. It fuels the polarization we see in the adult world. 3. Ignoring complexity. Real moral problems are rarely black and white. They are messy. Is it wrong to steal bread to feed your family? Is it wrong to punch a bully who has been tormenting you for years? Is it wrong to lie to protect a friend's secret? Moralism tends to hate these gray areas. It wants clear rules. But life is lived in the gray. If we only teach simple rules, we leave students ill-equipped for the actual ethical dilemmas they will face as adults. If we reject heavy-handed moralism, does that mean we go back to the value-free vacuum? No, that's impossible. The alternative to moralism is ethical inquiry. There is a huge difference between telling a child what to value and teaching a child how to value. In an authentic classroom, the teacher acts less like a priest and more like a referee or a guide. The goal is to help students develop their own moral compass, one that is robust enough to handle the real world. Here is what that looks like in practice. 1. Modeling over preaching. The most powerful moral lesson a teacher gives is their own behavior. You can put up 10 posters about respect, but if you scream at a student for forgetting a pencil, the poster is garbage. 4. When a teacher apologizes to a student for making a mistake, that teaches accountability. When a teacher listens to a student's clumsy explanation without interrupting, that teaches patience. When a teacher treats the janitor with the same kindness as the principal, that teaches equality. Kids watch what we do, not what we say. Authentic educators know that their character is the curriculum. 2. Discussing dilemmas. Instead of giving moral lectures, good teachers give moral problems. History class. Instead of saying dropping the atomic bomb was necessary evil, the teacher says, here is the situation Truman faced. Here are the estimates of casualties for an invasion. Here are the estimates for the bomb. Here are the accounts of the civilians in Hiroshima. What would you have done? Why? Literature class. Instead of saying Gatsby was immoral, ask, what was driving Gatsby? Is it possible to be a good person and do bad things? Have you ever done the wrong thing for the right reason? This forces students to use their brains. It forces them to weigh competing values. It respects their intellect. 3. Creating a moral community. The classroom itself is a mini society. The best moral education comes from managing that society together. Instead of the teacher making all the rules, the class makes a social contract. They discuss, how do we want to be treated in this room? What should happen if someone breaks that trust? When a conflict happens, say 2 kids get in a fight, the resolution isn't just punishment. It's restorative justice. They sit down, they talk. What happened? Who was hurt? What do we need to do to make it right? This teaches that morality isn't about following abstract rules. It's about relationships. It's about the impact our actions have on real human beings. 4. Expanding the circle of empathy. Finally, the role of education is to introduce students to people and ideas they would never meet in their own bubble. True moral growth happens when we encounter the other and realize they are human too. Reading a book about a refugee, a soldier, a scientist, and a chaotic teenager helps a student step into other skins. It builds the imagination. You cannot be moral without imagination, because you have to be able to imagine what it feels like to be someone else. In the end, we have to admit that we are all moralists in some way. We all want the next generation to be good. We all want them to be kind, honest, hardworking, and fair. But we have to be careful about how we get there. If we try to force-feed morality, we will choke them. If we try to program them like computers with the correct values, they will eventually rebel, or worse, they will become robots who only obey when someone is watching. The authentic American educator knows that the goal is not compliance. The goal is autonomy. We want to raise adults who do the right thing, not because they are afraid of the teacher, and not because they want a gold star, but because they have internalized a sense of justice and care. We want students who can look at the world with all its contradictions and messiness and make hard choices with integrity. This is slow work. It is messy work. You can't measure it on a standardized test. You can't bubble it in. It happens in the quiet moments, in the hallway conversation, in the debate over a novel, in the way a team picks itself up after a loss. Moralism tries to take a shortcut. It wants the fruit without tending the roots. But in education, there are no shortcuts. There is only the daily human work of showing up, telling the truth, and trying, imperfectly, to build a community where everyone belongs. That is the only moral education that sticks. That is the soul of the schoolhouse.